DJ school, and why did you drop out?
Not at all. I'm a DJ school dropout. Yes, indeed. I got a little bit busy. I was in primary school, probably in class 3.
Na ukajiambia tu ni vizuri sana nichukue gari ya babangu niendeshe nikiwa vizuri. What did your father do?
I actually thought that he would bit the stupidity out of me. For a business person, they look at the bottom line.
Yeah.
So when you talk about circularity actually means redefining out waste.
Yeah.
So when you say redefining out waste, what does it mean? It means that you're reducing on your costs. When you reduce your costs, what happens? And your profitability increases.
Yeah.
On policy aspects, I mean, of course, Kenya Private Sector Alliance has, the sector boards that they also provide for an opportunity for SMEs to come in. But you see, this is also a membership organization, so it means that people have to come on board. So they also see that as a barrier. But in essence, then when there is a push for a change in policy, it benefits everyone, even those that have not joined.
Yes.
I mean, utilization of AI is here with us. So businesses are supposed to be utilizing. There's an increase of the phones in Kenya. At some point, I looked at the figures, and it looked like the numbers of phones were higher than the population.
Because of the guys who have 2 phones, and I don't know what they're usually hiding.
Great initiative by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance to support the SMEs, and we want to see an increased level of SMEs being supported so that they able to. One thing that you started by saying that 80% of the businesses are SMEs, and they contribute significantly to job creation.
In an era where content shapes opinions and influences action, we bridge the information gap between the public and decision makers. We showcase best practices, success stories, untold challenges, and practical solutions in today's modern business landscape. Our conversations are now segmented into 5. Industry Insights is where we focus on conversations with business leaders on how they are influencing policy, as well as how they are contributing to Kenya's economic development. In the SME Diaries, we showcase real-life stories of how different small and medium enterprises are contributing to Kenya's GDP in different sectors. Then, the Youth and Jobs Corner is where we show you how different stakeholders are contributing to job creation and also showcase opportunities for youth employment and their inclusion in economic progress. Through the circular conversations, this is where we bring guests who are redefining business values and tackling the triple planetary crisis of pollution, biodiversity loss, and climate change. And finally, the Kenya Daima segment dives into governance issues with the aim of inspiring Kenyans towards peaceful coexistence and shared prosperity. This is the voice of the private sector in Kenya.
Brought to you by CH Studios, creating content that connects.
Greetings once again from the KEPSA Exchange podcast. I hope that you have been well since our last conversation, and I want to welcome you once again to this brand new episode of the Exchange podcast, hosted in partnership with CH Studios here in Westlands. Did you know that Kenya loses 40% of its food every year, and that translates to about 72 billion shillings? Quite a lot. And we want to look at how one organization or different stakeholders are actually trying to solve that problem using circular economy, and why SMEs are important to be at the center of this. And that is why this conversation today is at the middle of SME Diaries and Circular Conversations. I am joined by the one and only Ebenezer Amadi. He calls himself a DJ dropout. But above that, he is a senior program manager at Bopinc, dealing with circular economy and private sector engagement. Karibu sana to the show. It's been way overdue.
Asante sana. I appreciate you inviting me to the show today.
Karibu.
Yeah.
Please tell us, did I say anything that I shouldn't have about you dropping out of DJ school, and why did you drop out?
Not at all, not at all. I'm a DJ school dropout, yes, indeed. I got a little bit busy, but I'm to go
Is
back.
that so?
I'm to
Are
go
there
back
other
and
reasons?
continue with my practice. Yeah.
Okay, I look forward to seeing you in action.
Hopefully, you'll be providing entertainment in your show.
We should consider that, have entertainment, and then he'll be at the back there with his DJ set.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I want us to start as part of your introduction with a story of your father's flour mill and the Volvo 240
240 GL.
240 GL. Please
Yeah.
tell us that story and give us a background of you growing up and how that kind of makes sense today.
Awesome. But just for the purpose of your viewers, let me introduce myself. So my name is Ebenezer Amadi. I work for Bopinc as a senior program manager. Bopinc is in 5 markets, based out of the Netherlands. We are in Nigeria, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, and finally Kenya. But we have presence in different countries as well, where we have projects, for example, in Uganda. Now, just going back to the question you asked. So my dad had a maize mill, flour, packaging flour, maize flour. And it was interesting, just learning about business. But this time around, he went parked the car just close to the business. And I tried out the car, engaged some gears, and voila, I found myself in the fence. But that sticks in my memory because I always remember of the maize mill. And now that you mentioned about food loss, that also really rings a bell. Also, just remembering what he used to do in terms of using what rather we'll call as waste, just to package it and make another product, something people call Jenga.
Yeah.
So it's feed for...
the rough one, the big...
It looks like rice grain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually supposed to feed chicken, but I hear people eat it.
Oh, they do?
So, and it's actually from the processing when you're, just cleaning the maize, you remove that. So to get the fine, refined flour. So you have to remove that.
How old were you then?
How old I was in primary school, probably in class 3.
Na ukajiambia tu ni vizuri sana nichukue gari ya babangu niendeshe nikiwa class 3.
Yeah, we were just playing there.
You
Then
are there,
engage the gear. It was a manual one. Yeah, so when you remove it from a gear, it just rolls and meets the
What
fence.
did your father do after that?
I actually thought that he would bit the stupidity out of me, but he came in, reversed the car, parked, and then he just said, "Don't do that again." But in a normal situation, then he would not have spared the road.
Yeah, as it should.
As it should.
And I've
sure.
also seen you republish some of his work. He was a writer when he was...
Yeah, he used to have those columns
Yeah.
on the Daily Nation back in the day, in the 1990s.
Yeah.
He used to have a consultancy called Amadi and Associates. Yeah. Some interesting pieces that we'll get to... We'll get to at some point, and your viewers can get to read a little bit or hear the story.
Yes. Going back to the conversation of the food waste and the experience that you saw at that point, we had not given it the fancy word of circular economy, regenerative lifestyle and stuff like that, but it was there. Traditionally, a lot of us did practice those traditional, not really traditional, because even in modern day life, we still do them. It's just that we had not defined them per se. But why did it ring a bell? When you think about circular economy, why did that particular story ring a bell?
Yeah, it did ring a bell because it's, something that you're now reading in the reports, and then you remember, oh, I actually saw this happening with my dad in his business, trying to redesign out waste, trying to utilize the different, the different pieces to create different products. What you would rather call waste was being packaged to a different product instead of being thrown away.
Yeah.
So that's what made me remember or recall, because with the study that we undertook in Kenya and Uganda, basically looking at the policy inhibitors and enablers for SMEs in the agri-food space, we actually then saw the numbers that, as you just mentioned, Kenya has a food loss of about 40%. Uganda has a food loss of about between 30 to 50%. So, and the numbers are, when you mention the equivalent of a dollar amount,
It's a lot.
for Kenya is 72 billion Kenya shillings. For Uganda is 316 billion Uganda shillings.
Yes, to
just to
see
be clear.
confused.
Just to be clear, so that people don't get confused with the
Yes,
currency.
yes.
So that's the difference between the two countries. And if we go deeper, then we actually saw different aspects for the SMEs in the two countries. So the SMEs, the definition is different in Kenya, and that the definition in Uganda is also slightly different. So
when you say definition of SMEs is different from Kenya and Uganda, and I believe that is in terms of the turnover, would you be able to tell the difference in that case?
Yes. Now, if you look at the differences in terms of the number of employees, the turnover, of course, but also in terms of just the threshold. So, in essence, in Kenya, a micro enterprise has an employees of less than 10. For Uganda, it's actually less than 5. Then for a small, for Kenya, it's between 10 to 49. Uganda is between 5 to 49. A medium for Kenya is between 50 to 99, and for Uganda is between 50 to 100. So if you look at the threshold, then it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Now, if you come to the turnover now, the Kenya, for the medium, the ceiling is about 800 million. But for Uganda, it's about 360 million Uganda shillings.
Okay.
So with that, then you can actually tell the difference between the definition of a small and medium enterprise in the two countries.
Yes.
So it's not just the classic definition of an SME, and it's different in the United States. For them, it's a company that has a turnover of about 500,000 USD.
Yeah.
So if you bring that context to the Kenyan context, then
it
that's a different
doesn't,
level of a company.
Completely. And I believe that is also in reference to the country's economic performance in terms of the GDP, which makes a lot of sense, because then we cannot place each country at the same level as another one, yet the economic performance is also pretty different from one country to another.
For sure.
Speaking of SMEs, particularly in Kenya, they contribute to over 80% of that. And that is including also the employment numbers. But for circular economy, in the circular economy context particularly, they are the ones doing the innovations. If you look at it, if you look at if we translated your father's flour mill to today, the different innovations, whether it's turning that food waste, what we would have called food waste, into value, into product or input for another product. They are the ones driving the innovations. They are the ones driving the solutions. Do you feel they are getting the right support from organizations like yours, private sector as well, and the government?
To some extent, the SMEs are getting support. The only difference, based on the study, we actually saw that they feel they're not really involved on policy discussions. So that's a mismatch that they feel. But of course, there are different aspects. Like, for example, you have development partners who are coming in to support SMEs through the accelerators or incubator. For example, Bopinc has the OFUMS project that has both the accelerator and the incubation. So we are supporting SMEs in both two countries to be able to transition into circularity. So the innovation bit, technical assistance, just to be able to understand when we talk about circularity, what do we mean? How can you integrate this within your value chain and within your process to be able to? But for businesses, we use the term more efficiency. And for a business person, they look at the bottom line.
Yeah.
So when you tell them, when you talk about circularity actually means redefining out waste.
Yeah.
So when you say redefining out waste, what does it mean? It means that you're reducing on your costs. When you reduce your cost, what happens? And your profitability increases.
Yeah.
So if you use the same principle but use different terms just to explain this to the business person, so that you also get their interest, and that's the aspect that we're looking at. So ideally, on policy aspects, of course, Kenya Private Sector Alliance has, the sector boards that they also provide for an opportunity for SMEs to come in. But you see, this is also a membership organization. So it means that people have to come on board. So they also see that as a barrier. But in essence, then when there is a push for a change in policy, it benefits everyone, even those that have not joined.
Yes.
But of course, then they need to come on the table to have the conversation so that they're not ideally shocked when they find a new policy regulation. So that aspect needs to be enhanced slightly more beyond what KEPSA is doing. Of course, KEPSA is doing a great job to integrate the SMEs within the...
I wanted to provide that clarity that we do have a category for SMEs, and for SMEs also from there are two different categories at the entry level, but also at a more advanced level. So you still do have access to the table.
Very true.
I think, but also it depends on how actively involved they choose to be.
Yes.
And
that's the aspect I was talking about. Involvement is in different levels. It's not just you being told what is being done. You also have to be active in the discussions. So you're also able to understand what does the proposed policy mean for my business, and then now provide your feedback so that the policymakers can actually also take your input and convert that into the policy language. So that's what we have actually observed.
I was reading the report and I saw that specifically for Kenya, our policy landscape is quite advanced as compared to our East African counterparts. But it also shows that 60% of those SMEs have limited access to the right policies, and I'm speaking specifically in line with circular economy. So where exactly is the gap? Is it the dissemination from organizations like yours and ours and the government as well? Where is the gap? Why is that number so big?
I think it's on different levels. If you look at the findings of the report, then it actually says that in Kenya, 56% of the SMEs are not aware of the policy, some of the policy documents that are there. But in Uganda, it's higher. It's 82% of the SMEs that we interviewed. This is a sample, of course. I have to clarify that it's a sample size. 82% were not aware. So, this is on different levels. There's the awareness creation that the regulator does, which contributes. There is the awareness that development partners also do, awareness of business membership organizations and umbrella bodies like Kenya Private Sector Alliance. But it's never enough because, again, people choose what they want to read and the information that they want to receive, right? We have availability of a wide range of selection of information at the click of a button now. But it's sometimes it's also you have to take initiative to go and
get it.
Yeah,
and some of those affect them directly. They need to know what is happening, whether it's as the basic one being the sustainable waste management policy. Isn't that like the first doorstep into
again, when you're in this space, when you're actually active in the policy discussions and you're able to know about the different policy regulations and act of parliament, then you are able to kind of quickly go and find out, is there an additional policy or regulation that's affecting my business? And that's why businesses also began to hire like policy advisors within their institution. So their work is ideally to go and map out laws, regulations, and policy, and try to look at impact and risk. So the risk element to a business. By risk, I mean, with the change of law, then it can actually make your business illegal. So you also have to be keen every time in terms of what other new regulations are coming out. Just for example, when the plastic carrier bags were banned in Kenya, everyone was up in arms.
But it was back in 2017.
Slowly, people began to understand, okay, what are we talking about? And then they saw, okay, this is an environmental risk that we're looking at. And then slowly people just shifted with using new innovations. But of course, if we were to look at the impact of the new innovations, that's another story. But now we're just looking at how the change happened.
That has made a difference in our environment, particularly.
Yes. So actually also adopting the R's of circularity: reuse, repurpose, refurbish, recover, recycle. And that's also a journey. In different sectors, they actually call it behavior change communication. So where you communicate to the society, and with time you're anticipating that the behavior changes. Just as the same way when we talk about separation of waste at source, it's a behavior. So because you're used to putting your trash in one
together,
in one tin, right?
Yes.
Or in one
bin.
of the bins,
the bag, the waste bag,
that you have. Then naturally, if someone tells you to now starting using 3, you're wondering, why should I do that?
Yes.
But when you start to understand, actually, you're supporting the recovery of material so that it doesn't all go to the dump site, then you're like, so my contribution would be this, actually separating the waste that I have.
Yeah, and it does help to understand, because you find that when you have that understanding and you take that behavior change as a personal initiative first, so you sort of do whatever it is in your capacity, even before the larger community, the larger the country itself, and even before the policy is actually translated at the institutional level. So you see, the moment you're able to reach to the people, to the SMEs, to the companies, to the individuals with those broken down communication messages that will help them understand, why is this important and why should I care? That's the biggest question. Why should I care? Why should I do it? Then you start seeing some changes, some behavior changes at the household level specifically. And ideally, that will eventually translate into the bigger picture. I don't know how long you think it will take.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, it can either take a while or it can take a shorter period, just depending on how the community are involved. The regulators are also involved in sending out the information, and I mean, sometimes it can take a shorter time. Because the level of interest, actually, if it's high, then people will be quick to go and read the information and ask the question, how can I then contribute to changing the trajectory of where we're going in terms of managing of waste. For example, if you look at food loss and food waste, those are two different elements, right? When we talk about food loss, we're looking at that which is being lost post harvest, right? And it's along the value chain. It could be when you're transporting it, depending on how you're storing, right? But again, also sometimes consumers don't purchase as much as the production
was expected.
So that also leads to food loss. Now, food waste is a bit different. Food waste is when now you're consuming the food, and a clear example is when you have a plate and you heap the plates and you don't finish.
Honestly.
So you end up throwing away the food, so you're wasting food. So those are two different elements. Now, particularly here, we are focusing on food loss, and what we're saying is that we want a country that has reduced food loss. And there's a link to emissions of greenhouse gases.
How do you know how much?
It's quite significant for Kenya. I mean, if you're losing 40% of the food being produced, that's quite high,
translation is equally
high. And Uganda up to 50%, that's also quite significant. Basically means that if you produced one bag of maize, then half of it
is gone.
So if it's 100 kgs, 50 kgs is gone.
Yet we remain a food insecure continent.
So that would be one way to actually support towards a food secure nation. And reducing again on emissions. For example, Kenya, we're looking at reducing our emissions by 33% by 2030. So there is a linkage between these two elements, between climate change, food loss, and that's why we're actually very keen to actually see that we reduce on the food loss. But again, as SMEs are coming up with innovations, it will actually contribute to, increased or improved livelihood. Because when you spoke about efficiency, then if a company reduces on the losses, then at least we want to anticipate that they will increase on their margins and profitability, and by extension livelihood of the people who are operating those small and medium enterprises. So that's the bottom line that we want to achieve. So there are two elements: livelihoods and environmental impact.
An SME who's listening to you now, they are in the food value chain, the agricultural value chain, and they're wondering, this is something that I'm experiencing firsthand. I'm losing this much food or crop product between harvest and it reaching the consumer. And the innovations that you keep referencing, maybe they don't know what to do. So what are some of those practical recommendations of where investment needs to go from the moment, not even between harvest and consumption, it also from the beginning, to make sure that value chain is sustainable from the moment the ground is actually dug for production.
Now, a company is always different. It normally depends with the value chain that they're in, right? So, for example, if you're into aggregation, so you have to look at your storage. How are you storing? How are you transporting? What is the time between you get the product from the farm to your cold chain facility and you get it to the market? So those are elements that you need to track and find out. The other bit that is also very key is when you're doing value addition, then the byproduct, then you have to find different ways then to create a product. We have seen different companies, let's say, for example, generating biogas from the waste that they have. Others are coming up with gummy bears, for example, one that is in the project. So there are different ways that companies are coming up with their new innovations that are quite interesting to see. Others are coming up with fertilizer, for example. Others are using black soldier flies to ensure that the organic waste is actually utilized in feeding the black soldier flies, and then they come up with a product which is animal feed. So that's some innovations that you're seeing. But each SME should be able to look at their product, look at the losses that they have, and try to find out how can I then utilize what I'm considering as waste and as input for production for a different product. So it can be in two ways. You're actually reducing the loss, but you can actually find an opportunity to increase your revenues by coming up with a new product. So SMEs are now beginning to have a mind shift. You're not just talking about making the environment clean and throwing it in the right corner. They're thinking smart and trying to find out, okay, this could be an opportunity for me to get a new product through the market.
Yes. One of those interesting ones I've seen is from mananasi, like pineapple waste, pineapple peels to fiber. Textile. So also it's not just within the food and agricultural value chain. We are also seeing that transition from one sector to actually input for another sector, another industry, which is quite intriguing if we want to admit.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And we have different companies that are in the process, like for example Marule Protein, so they're coming up with the fertilizer, and they're fairly competing with the synthetic fertilizer. So they're having one that's having a little bit of a mix. So that the other element that people are also looking at is production. So in as much as people are coming up with circular products, then you also have to look at the needs of the market. So does it compete equally with some of the products that are in the market? If not, what is it that you can improve on it? So quite interesting things that we are actually seeing in our cohort one, both in Uganda and in Kenya.
In Kenya. Apart from the study that you have done and the trainings, what other areas of enabling SMEs is Bopinc in? And I'm trying to dig into whether you're also providing market linkages.
Yes, indeed. Market linkage is a key element. And when you look at some of the barriers that SMEs were talking about, access to technology, access to financing, and again, just looking at awareness of policies. When you look at the study, we're looking at two pieces. We're looking at inhibitors, but also enablers. When people talk about policy regulations, they only look at the negative side, which is the inhibitor. But they fail to look at the positive side, which is the enabler. So asking yourself, what does this policy present as an opportunity for my business? Sometimes there are tax incentives in there or rebates. Sometimes it actually gives you affordable financing. When financial institutions are coming up with innovative financing, like for example, financing that are geared towards climate action. Like several banks, not so many. One of them in Kenya, which recently signed an agreement, on climate action, so that with the green climate financing. I don't want to mention the name. It could be one of your members.
It could be. I hope they are.
Yeah. So, those are certain aspects that SMEs can take advantage of. And that's why it's good to actually know about this information so that they can take advantage of it.
Okay. All right. So, watu wajitume. There's a guest who told me earlier that we need to make Google our friend as well when it comes to matters policy and some of the access to information. I think sometimes we
I would actually talk about use of AI.
Okay.
Yeah, not just
Interesting
Google.
aspect.
Yes,
Not just
take
Google.
it,
And not
not just
higher.
Google. Take it one step further. You know,
Tell me about that.
You utilize AI, because if you there's a period in Kenya where people were talking about a finance bill, and everyone went in to dig into this document to find out what does it say. Yeah, clause by clause, just to an article. I mean, just trying to understand what does it mean for our business. So that's the same thing you can do. So take the document, put it in AI, and then give it the correct prompts. Just say, what benefits or inhibitors or enablers will this present to an SME of this category? You know, you'll get some aspects, and then you can go further deeper just to now understand those articles or sections better. So I mean, utilization of AI is here with us. So businesses are supposed to be utilizing it. And you know, the internet penetration in Kenya is quite significant. I mean, most people have there's an increase of the phones in Kenya. At some point, I looked at the figures, and it looked like the numbers of phones were higher than the population.
Because of the guys who have two phones, and I don't know what they're usually hiding. Or you say mtu anasema hii ni ya kazi, hii ni ya nyumbani. Well,
who knows? Who knows? Further investigations can be done, or a study needs to be so that we come with the findings here the next time.
Yes. Interesting. And the launch has just been done for this report. Where do we find it, and what are some of the key takeaways that we actually need to be on the lookout for?
So ideally, someone can go to our website, www.bopinc, that's bopinc.org, /orphams. That's OFARMS.
Hey, that's a long one. Please make sure you include it.
Look up. Link up.
Yes, tafadhali, because some of our memories are like those of a fish.
Then you can get access to the report. So we have a report that is focusing on the two markets. That's the Kenya market and Uganda market, both combined. And we have two policy briefs. So the two policy briefs actually show the enablers and inhibitors for each country, and specific recommendations there. Because when you go deeper into these documents, you'll be able to see, for example, that in Uganda, policy and awareness is at 82%. Tech barriers, 91% of the respondents said that this was an issue. You know, food loss being at between 30 to 50%. 89% of the respondents actually also mentioned that they have a financial gap. So these elements, and you can do a comparison between Kenya and Uganda, because we used a similar metric.
Even before we dig deeper, I can only tell you need to do more work in Uganda.
Because of the food loss
and the gaps that need to be facilitated.
But on the flip side, Uganda is actually a very beautiful country.
It is.
You know, they call it the Pearl of Africa. And when you move from Kenya to Uganda, you actually see a difference. Uganda is at the Busia border. On the other side, Uganda is quite green.
And another aspect that I was one of the guests for this podcast is doing business both in Kenya and Uganda.
Okay, nice.
In the production of, I think it's palm oil for their oils, refined oils, and he mentioned that in terms of the public-private partnerships as well, it's quite advanced in Uganda, because then you find the government even saying there's this space, come and produce, come and do the agricultural part of it, and that helps for them to also be able to take business and expand business within the East African region. Again, providing more linkages for the SMEs within that value chain.
You know, countries are always different, and business people see opportunities in different countries. Like one of the gurus in textile and apparel here in Kenya, at one point was saying that for him, he's actually seeing Uganda as a higher competitive advantage than Kenya. So I found that to be interesting comparison. And if we go farther again, we can say that you will have more access to financing in Kenya than Uganda.
Yeah.
So different countries are at different places. So Kenya also has a very rich and robust policy and legal framework. I can mention a few: the National Sustainable Waste Management Act. We have the EPR regulation. And Uganda was at some point actually also, and Rwanda as well, were learning from Kenya,
Yes.
and then started drafting their EPR regulation. But you see, again, the challenge in Kenya is that we are quick to develop these policies, frameworks. We are quick to think, but sometimes, I don't know, we are quite slow in the execution and implementation. So you might find other countries came and learned from Kenya, and they're progressing quite faster.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge for us to now look at how do we then proceed on with the implementation part. Now, you mentioned a part where you looked at access to markets. And one of the things that businesses are looking at is certifications and standards. Of course, these then offer an opportunity for you to get access to markets, because if you have the right standards, and your standards, Bureau of Standards in the two countries are able to give you the certification,
That can work both in both countries as long as we're in the same region.
Sometimes they're different, of course, because you have different institutions, but you have some similarity. But if you go with the certification from Kenya and vice versa to Uganda, then they might look at it and make certain considerations, or they will just tell you to take your product as a sample, and then now they look at if it qualifies. But if you have good standards, of course, then it means if you go to the other country, then it will be a piece of cake.
Yes, so very true.
So that's what we're looking at. But businesses also need to understand that different markets have different standards and certifications, right? So if you're looking at the markets in Europe, then you also have to follow through and look at what are their standards, what are the certifications. The new policies and regulations coming into play, right? You just saw that the EU is encouraging businesses not to cut down trees,
Yes.
So those are aspects that then businesses need to begin to learn as they're looking for to grow to different markets. Now, when we're conducting this study, one thing that I found really interesting when we're looking at the data, and actually saw that under the sample size that we used, the SMEs in Uganda were exporting more than the SMEs in Kenya. So I looked at the data and said, wait a minute, there should be a problem.
It should be vice versa. Shock on you.
Yeah, there should be a problem. But then I going deeper into the data, then I realized, again, the classification of an SME is different. So we actually saw that the classification of SMEs were doing inter-county kind of trade, a little bit more on regional. And a small percentage in terms of export. So that's when I actually realized that you also have to look at all this data in context. You can just compare.
Can't copy paste.
You can just copy paste.
Good.
To make a good comparison.
Yes. Fair enough. I think that's quite an in-depth analysis of the two markets, but also, the gaps that SMEs are facing in terms of successfully contributing to the transition to a circular economy, and Kenya is particularly has been a lot on the forefront with not just putting those policies also in place, but also getting the private sector involved in complying to the regulations themselves, with challenges here and there, but you can also see the adoption. You can't compare that with what was in terms of compliance with what was there 2-3 years back. I think with that kind of awareness, there's a long way to go, but there's good progress. Steps are being taken by organizations like yours, organizations like KEPSA, that is driving private sector adoption. And most of those SMEs are in the private sector.
Yeah.
Actually, most all of them.
It's the private sector, ideally,
Yes,
when
yes.
you look at it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's something that we are actually calling assisted compliance.
Yes.
So where you support businesses to comply. You know, sometimes when you just come with a stick without necessarily giving them the information, and we're not aware. But you know, again, the law says that ignorance is no defense. But for you to get a good mix and also just encourage your SMEs, you also have to support them through this journey. That's why we're working with institutions like UNBS and KEBS in Kenya, you know, just to have conversations with SMEs, take them through the certification process. You know, how do you get your products to be certified with these two entities, both in Kenya and Uganda. And we are having, you know, conversations with the two institutions, or call them government agencies. And they're actually very keen to support SMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises. They actually have a desk. So they are like, okay, let's organize for a session for SMEs to come, just also to learn the standards that are there. It could be quite confusing, even for you who's in policy. If you go there, you're like, goodness,
it's a lot.
there's so many standards. So sometimes you just say there are no standards. And that's why it was very important for us to undertake this study, to be able to determine which standards are there and which ones are not there. Then clearly we'll use the findings to go and have a conversation and say, okay, based on what we saw in the market, this is what SMEs need, but we're seeing that there's no standard. Sometimes they tell you we're in the process of developing it, but we have not finalized. So can we make improvements on it? And sometimes they say, actually that's covered in this other standard. So probably you're looking for it in the wrong place. This is classified under a different standard. So that also helps us to communicate better to the SMEs that are coming into the different cohorts, just to get that sense of awareness and an understanding of how these agencies are working, or how the different policies come to play in business. And that's really important, because the policy space is quite interesting. And that's why I keep talking about creating an enabling environment for businesses. Now, within the OFAM's project, which is funded by IKEA Foundation and implemented with Bopinc as the lead, and BVAT, Biovision Africa Trust, and UNCAP, Unconventional Capital, all these partners are implementing the project. There are 4 strategies. So strategy one actually looks at supporting, so it's more or less like an accelerator platform, you know, trying to work with the medium enterprises to help them grow better. So we provide the technical assistance, we provide a little bit of grants. On strategy 2, we're actually looking at incubation, so the micro kind of enterprises that we're working with, you know. For them, we are giving them like an online platform to come in and learn. We have seen an increase in terms of demand for them to actually gain the information. I mean, strategy 3 is working with enterprise support organizations. So we want them also to be sustainable. So how are they framing their products, you know, supporting SMEs? And finally, we come to the interesting piece, which is strategy 4, which is advocacy. So where we now conduct studies like this, and just also try to find out what are the challenges that SMEs are facing, and how, when you take the challenge, how can you translate that to the changes that you need in policy? So when you go to a business person, you don't ask them, which policy do you want us to change? Because we have already looked at the numbers, right? Quite significant, 56%, 82% awareness levels, and unawareness levels.
You don't expect them to change overnight.
You don't expect them to know the different policies, regulations, but they will tell you, this is our challenge. Now it's upon us to now look at the challenge and translate that to the gaps in policy. frame it now so that we can have conversations with the policymakers and say, these are the issues that we are seeing in business, and these are our proposals that we are seeing could have either amendments or adjustments to policy documents or regulations or an act of parliament.
Okay.
So this is it's a long process sometimes. It's not a quick process, as you understand, because this is the main business for the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. So in some instances, then the wins might come quick. And so in other instances, then the win might take some time, and it's progressive. We
keep working.
We keep working at it,
pushing.
and of course that's the main agenda that we have to create an enabling environment for businesses. So we'll have the 2 policy briefs, so we'll be able to deliver them and have conversations with ministries, regulators, agencies, just to see where the adjustments need to be made.
And the Kenya Private Sector
And
Alliance.
the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, of course.
Beyond
course.
advocacy, KEPSA is also very keen on SME development. But the interesting thing is that it also leads a circular economy and sustainability aspect as well, which gives you a perfect nexus to have that conversation with the SMEs that we work with, all of them. Like, can we then mainstream sustainability, mainstream circular economy conversations and implementation into their business strategies from the moment they are very young and they're starting, so that it doesn't become an afterthought, but rather a part of their DNA in ways that for instance, now the next report you do, hopefully we see a change in those numbers to show that policy has been accessed, but not just being accessed, has been translated and contributed to the ease of doing business for SMEs, but also for established institutions.
Yeah, and that's great initiative by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance to support the SMEs, and we want to see an increased level of SMEs being supported so that they able to, it's one thing that you started by saying that 80% of the businesses are SMEs and they contribute significantly to job creation, which is about 90%. So, but again, the numbers are always interesting. So you find that the 20% generate a huge contribution to GDP, but the SMEs are actually also contributing greatly to employment. So we and SMEs actually, if you look at it, is a greater part of the engine of an economy, right? So this is where the most innovation come from. But you see now companies beginning to grow. And we love to see the curve of SMEs growing, accelerating.
From micro
to small
to medium then to Kienda.
Until they become blue chip companies.
Yes,
so that's interesting. So if you look at some of the journey that businesses are going through, it's of course it takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy for SMEs to grow. I've observed my dad opening different businesses, from a supermarket, for maize mill, from consultancy, and when you look at the growth curve at the first initial year, it's usually very difficult. On day one, when our supermarket was opened, we stayed there for a while waiting for customers. And do you know how many customers we served on day one?
How many?
There were 7.
You almost say, what's a kai?
Yeah, so if you don't have that zeal to push on, you'll be like, hey, this thing is not for me.
Yeah.
So, and 1 month down the line, then you actually start to see a gradual increase. Up to the point now you think this space is too small, we need to expand it. Because now the customers are too many. We had 1 point of a cashier. Now we need 2. Now we need 3. Yeah, there's a model that's called the queuing model that you actually need to use to find out how many cashier points you need in a supermarket.
Because of the size of the queue.
because of the size of the queue, yes.
And I think it's really good that we also tell these success stories of, we don't always focus on the gaps and the challenges, but also to share the stories of SMEs. And in the next conversation, I would want us to have on board not just yourself or someone from Bopinc as the implementing partner, but also the SMEs who've gone through that. Let's hear their voices. Let's now translate to what has this, meant and done for them from their own perspective.
We'd love to bring them, and definitely they have good stories to share.
Yes.
And they can tell it better than myself.
Very true also. And then we can put you on the bench and play the music.
Indeed. I'll bring my decks and then they can sit here. So during the breaks, I play some music.
It has been really wonderful having you in this conversation.
The pleasure is mine, and thank you for inviting me to the show.
We look out for the reports. Understand, like he said, the enablers and the inhibitors. See where your business as an SME falls, and even as an enabler, see where you can plug in and make a difference in helping the SMEs understand the different policies and how they impact positively or negatively to their businesses. And with that collective approach, then we shall make a huge difference. Thank you so much, Ebenezer.
Thank you so much.
Ebenezer or Ebenezer?
No, it's Ebenezer.
Ebenezer
Amadi.
Hey, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for staying with us. Always feel free to share your feedback with us on our social media pages. I have been your host, Josephine Owira, and until next time, God bless.
Brought to you by CH Studios, creating content that connects.